Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at a sermon based on the Book of Esther.
Okay.
And this is a really interesting one
Yeah.
because it's a story packed with intrigue, faith,
Mm-hmm.
and some characters who are like complete opposites.
Yeah.
You'll hear how this guest speaker is reflecting on his work for this Grace Study Bible that's coming out.
Okay.
And he kind of uses the story of Esther to explore, what it means to be faithful when things are tough.
Right.
So this sermon was delivered February 23rd, 2025, and I think you guys are really going to like it.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
So one of the things that's really cool about the Book of Esther is that it doesn't like explicitly say God,
Right.
but like you could really feel God there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely feel that underlying sense of like divine providence. It's like
Right.
a hidden message that you gotta kind of decode.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you wonder if like maybe we miss those signs in our own lives sometimes.
Oh, too.
But okay, so before we dive into like the heavy stuff,
Okay.
the speaker starts off with something that I think we can all relate to, which is food.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't love food?
He talks about how much he enjoys meals at church gatherings.
Right.
And he connects that to like, appreciating the good things in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever thought about that? How even simple joys can point to something bigger?
Yeah, I think it's like a really good point.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle and forget to like appreciate those little moments, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But it's those moments that can really bring us joy and remind us of what's truly important.
Yeah, and I think that sets the stage perfectly for Esther's story
Oh, absolutely.
because she faces like some really dark times,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately she triumphs.
Right.
And speaking of like facing challenges, the speaker gets really honest about his own hesitation
Yeah.
to take on this project for the Grace Study Bible. And I was like, even someone who studies the Bible for a living can have doubts.
Right.
It makes you realize it's okay to question things.
Yeah, totally. Like, even when it comes to faith, it's good to ask questions and like wrestle with those doubts.
Right.
I think that's how we grow.
Yeah, and it makes him seem so much more relatable.
Yeah, for sure.
Like he's just being real with us,
Cool. Totally. It's like he's saying, hey, I struggle with this stuff too.
Yeah,
It's not always easy to have like unwavering faith.
right.
It's a journey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Haman for a sec.
Okay. The villain of the story.
Yeah, the speaker describes him as like talented, manipulative,
Mm.
driven by self-interest.
Classic antagonist material.
Right, but I wonder if there's more to it.
What do you mean?
Like, could it be that his desire for power stems from something deeper?
Hmm. Like what?
I don't know, like insecurity maybe?
Okay, yeah.
Or a need for validation?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because he's clearly power hungry. But there's also this element of like wounded pride, you know?
All right.
Like, remember how Mordecai,
Yeah, Esther's cousin?
right, refused to bow down to him?
Yeah.
That little act of defiance
Yeah.
sent Haman into a total rage.
Yeah, he lost it.
And that's what led to his plan to just wipe out all the Jews.
I know, it's crazy.
It's a powerful reminder that, like, even small acts of courage can have huge consequences.
Totally.
But it also makes you think about how fragile our egos can be
Oh, for sure.
and how dangerous that can be when you mix it with power.
Right.
Like, that's when things get really scary.
Totally. So the speaker points out that even though God isn't mentioned by name in the Book of Esther,
Right.
his providence is like woven throughout the story.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's there.
It's like a puzzle.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
got to look closely to see the bigger picture.
Totally. Have you ever experienced something like that in your own life?
Oh, yeah.
Where you look back and you're like, wow, God was working behind the scenes even when I couldn't see it.
All the time.
Me too. It's amazing how he does that.
Yeah, and sometimes that divine intervention takes the form of a little poetic justice.
You're talking about the part where Haman has to parade Mordecai through the streets,
Yes.
honoring the very man he wanted to destroy.
I know. It's like what goes around comes around.
It really is. You can almost picture the speaker like chuckling as he describes it.
I know.
Such a classic case of pride comes before a fall.
Right. So now we have Esther,
Okay.
and she's facing this impossible choice.
Yeah.
Like stay silent and risk the lives of her people,
Mm-hmm.
or approach the king unsummoned and risk her own life.
Talk about a dilemma.
I know, like what would you do?
I honestly don't know. It would be so tough.
Right, it's a situation that would test anyone's faith.
Absolutely.
But the speaker highlights how Esther doesn't give in to despair or fear.
Right.
Instead, she turns to prayer and fasting.
Okay.
seeking guidance,
Yeah, from a higher power. That's
Yeah.
what gives her the strength to act.
And that faith, that reliance on something bigger than herself, ultimately gives her the courage to act.
It's amazing how faith can do that.
Yeah, surely is.
Like, give us the strength to face the impossible. It's pretty inspiring.
It is.
Yeah, it's like he's saying that her courage comes from this trust that, like, even if the worst happens, she's in God's hands.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's a powerful message.
Yeah, and that trust, guides her as the story unfolds
Right.
through these lavish banquets
Mm.
where she carefully reveals Haman's plot to the king.
Oh, yeah, those banquets are intense.
Talk about a high-stakes dinner party.
It's like a master class in strategy and diplomacy,
Yeah.
She doesn't just, blurt out the truth. She waits for the perfect moment.
Right,
Carefully builds her case.
right.
Exposes Haman's treachery.
It's brilliant.
It really is. It makes you wonder how often we miss opportunities to act
Yeah,
because we're too afraid to speak up or take a risk.
I know. A lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah, for sure.
But Esther's story reminds us that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to step out in faith,
Right.
even when we don't know what the outcome will be.
Absolutely. And her faith is ultimately rewarded.
Yeah.
Not just for her personally, but for her entire people.
It's amazing.
Haman's plot is foiled. He gets a taste of his own medicine.
Yeah.
The Jews are saved from annihilation. Talk about a satisfying ending.
It's almost too perfect.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if things really work out that neatly in real life.
Right. It's a great story, but does
Yeah.
it always happen like that?
The speaker then kind of shifts gears a bit,
Okay.
bringing the story into the present day.
Mm-hmm.
He acknowledges that it's easy to look back at biblical accounts
Right.
and see God's hand at work.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's harder to recognize his presence in our own lives.
That's true.
Have you ever felt that way?
Oh, yeah. That's
You can see God's plan in retrospect, but in the moment, it's just chaos.
Totally. When you're going through something difficult, it's hard to see the bigger picture.
Exactly.
But then later you look back and you're like, oh, okay, I see what God was doing there.
Right. And the speaker even admits that he sometimes wonders if it was easier to believe
Yeah.
back when miracles were more commonplace.
That's interesting.
It's like he's acknowledging that doubt is a normal part of the human experience.
Yeah.
Even for someone who's dedicated their life to studying the Bible.
I think it's refreshing to hear that kind of honesty.
Yeah.
Makes you realize that you're not alone in your struggles.
Right.
But instead of letting doubt paralyze him,
Yeah.
he uses it as a springboard to explore what it means to have faith in the midst of uncertainty.
Right.
He reminds us that we're called to walk by faith, not by sight, even when that feels impossible.
That's a good point.
It's not always easy, but it's what we're called to do.
And to illustrate that point, he brings up the story of doubting Thomas.
Oh,
The disciple who refused to believe in Jesus' resurrection.
Right, until he saw the physical evidence.
Exactly. Why do you think that story resonates with so many people, even today?
I think it's because it's so relatable.
Yeah.
We all have a little bit of Thomas in us,
Totally.
We want we want to see things with our own eyes before we fully believe.
Right. But the speaker points out that there's a special blessing
Okay.
reserved for those who choose to believe, even when they don't have all the answers.
I like that.
It's like Jesus is saying, trust me, even when it's hard.
Yeah.
True faith is about believing in the unseen.
That's powerful.
And that trust, according to the speaker, is at the very heart of what it means to have faith.
Okay.
He even quotes Hebrews 11:1-3, where faith is defined as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
Wow, that's a great definition.
What does that mean to you? How do you define faith?
That's a good question. I think for me, faith is about having this deep-seated conviction
Okay.
that shapes our understanding of the world and influences our action. It's about trusting that God has a plan, even when we can't see the whole picture.
Right. And the speaker unpacks that definition further
Yeah.
by highlighting several key aspects of faith.
Okay.
First, he says that faith is a conviction, a belief that what we hope for will actually happen.
Right.
He reminds us that as believers, our hope is rooted in the promise of eternal life through Christ.
That's a beautiful thought.
It's not just blind optimism.
No.
It's a deep-seated trust in God's promises.
And it's that conviction that gives us the strength to face the challenges of life.
Right.
Knowing that no matter what happens, we're ultimately secure in God's love.
He also talks about faith as a trust in God for everything,
Yeah.
including the future.
That can be hard.
I know, especially when we're going through tough times.
Right.
And we don't understand why things are happening the way they are.
It's in those moments that we need to lean on each other,
Yeah.
on our community of faith.
Right.
When our own faith is weak, we can draw strength from the faith of others, knowing that we're not alone in our struggles.
That's so important.
It is. That's why it's so important to surround yourself with people
Yeah.
who will support you on your faith journey.
The speaker then describes faith as a foundation,
Okay.
the bedrock upon which we build our lives.
I like that analogy.
It's the lens through which we see the world,
Right.
the compass that guides our decisions, the source of our strength and purpose.
Would you say that faith is your foundation?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think without faith, life would feel pretty meaningless.
I agree.
But with faith as our anchor,
Yeah.
we can weather any storm.
It gives us a sense of perspective,
Right.
knowing that even in the midst of suffering, God is with us.
Mhm.
He has a plan for our lives.
And that plan, as the speaker points out, is always unfolding.
Right.
He describes faith as an act of hope directed towards the future.
I like that.
It's about believing that even though we don't know what tomorrow holds,
Yeah.
God does, and He's working everything out for our good.
It's not about living in fear of the unknown,
Right.
but about embracing the possibilities that lie ahead.
Yeah.
Knowing that God is leading us every step of the way.
And finally, the speaker reminds us that our faith is inspired by God's promises.
Mm-hmm.
It's by immersing ourselves in His Word,
Yeah.
by meditating on His character,
Right.
by witnessing His faithfulness
Right.
in our own lives and the lives of others.
That's how our faith is strengthened.
It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
The more we exercise it, the stronger it becomes.
Exactly. And the stronger our faith, the more equipped we are to face whatever challenges come our way.
So the speaker then shifts focus to the importance of Christian community,
Okay.
reminding us that we're not meant to walk this path alone.
Right. We need each other.
And he even acknowledges the struggles
Yeah.
faced by his own assembly and the one he's speaking to.
What kind of struggles?
He mentions challenges with sickness,
Oh, wow.
even the search for a new pastor.
That's a lot to deal with.
It is. It's a really touching moment where
Yeah.
he shows his vulnerability and connects with his listeners on a personal level.
I can see that.
It's like he's saying, look, I know things are tough, but we're in this together.
Yeah.
Let's support each other, pray for each other,
Right.
encourage each other through the difficult times.
And he challenges us to go beyond just showing up on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, he encourages everyone to step up
Mm,
and use their God-given talents to serve one another
right.
and spread the message of the gospel.
It's a call to action,
It is.
an invitation to move beyond passive participation,
Mm-hmm.
embrace the privilege of being part of something bigger than ourselves.
He then expresses gratitude
Okay.
for the blessing of having an assembly to gather with,
Right.
contrasting it with the reality faced by believers in areas
Yeah.
where such gatherings are restricted or even illegal.
That's a powerful reminder to appreciate the freedoms we often take for granted
Totally.
and to pray for those who are persecuted for their faith.
It's easy to get caught up in our own little world,
Yeah.
but he challenges us to broaden our perspective. Remember our brothers and sisters around the world
Yeah.
who are facing real hardship for their beliefs.
The speaker then wraps up this section of the sermon with a heartfelt prayer.
Okay.
He thanks God for the preservation of his word,
Mm-hmm.
asks for his blessing on other assemblies meeting that morning,
Yeah.
seeks his guidance in the search for a new pastor.
It's a beautiful expression of humility and dependence.
It really is.
He's acknowledging that ultimately it's not about us or our efforts.
Right.
It's about God's grace and provision.
And he reminds both congregations that God has someone in mind for them,
Yeah.
urging them to be faithful and diligent in the search process,
Right.
trusting that God will lead them to the right person.
There's a sense of peace and confidence in his prayer.
Yeah.
It's like he's saying, don't worry, God's got this.
Hmm.
He has a plan and it's going to be amazing.
I love that.
He then concludes by thanking God for his awesomeness,
Okay.
acknowledging his sovereignty and power.
It's a fitting end to a sermon that's both challenging and encouraging.
It really is.
It reminds us that even in the face of adversity, we can find hope and strength in the faithfulness of our God.
The speaker's ability to weave together personal anecdotes, biblical insights,
Yeah,
and practical applications is really remarkable.
absolutely.
He manages to take complex theological concepts
Right.
and make them accessible and relatable.
He does it with such warmth and sincerity.
Yeah.
It feels like you're having a conversation with a friend
Totally.
rather than listening to a lecture.
I know he's a really gifted speaker. It's like he's just a natural, but it's interesting.
Right.
He spends all this time unpacking Esther's story,
Right.
highlighting her courage and faithfulness.
Yeah.
But he never actually says who or what she's putting her faith in.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's almost like he's leaving that piece of the puzzle for us.
Right? Like he wants us to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you wonder
Mm-hmm.
if maybe he's challenging us to examine our own beliefs.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, who or what are we placing our faith in?
That's a good question.
And is it strong enough to guide us through difficult times?
It's like he's holding up a mirror,
Yeah.
and saying, look closely.
Right.
What do you see?
Yeah. What are the foundations of your faith?
Are they strong enough to withstand the storms of life?
It's a powerful challenge for sure.
It is.
And I think it's one that we all need to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
So to recap, we've explored the contrast between faithlessness and faithfulness.
Right, like Haman versus Esther.
Exactly. And we've seen how unchecked ambition and prejudice can have devastating consequences.
Absolutely.
But we've also witnessed the power of courage strategy and unwavering belief in something bigger than ourselves.
This deep dive into the Book of Esther
Yeah.
has reminded us that even when things are tough, even when the odds are stacked against us,
Yeah.
hope and faith can prevail.
It's a timeless story
It really is.
that still speaks to us today.
Centuries later.
And it's a reminder that faith isn't just about believing in something.
Right.
It's about acting on those beliefs.
Yeah, even when it's hard or risky.
Exactly. It's about trusting that even if things don't go as planned, there's a higher power at work.
Guiding us towards a greater purpose.
But the speaker's final question really sticks with me.
Yeah, about Esther's faith.
Yeah, like who or what was she placing her faith in?
And how does that challenge our own understanding of faithfulness?
Right. What does it mean to truly live a life of faith?
Is it about following rules?
Yeah.
Adhering to a specific doctrine?
Or is it something deeper?
Something more personal?
Yeah, something that resonates deep within our souls.
I think that's the beauty of faith.
Yeah,
It's a deeply personal journey.
there's no one right answer.
Exactly what matters is that we're seeking, questioning, striving to live in a way that aligns with our values.
This deep dive has been really thought-provoking.
It has.
I hope you've enjoyed exploring the Book of Esther with us.
Me too.
And that you found some things to think about on your own journey.
Yeah, something to chew on.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.
See you later.